I'm going to begin by making you aware that council meetings are available live through Zoom, and recordings may be posted online on County of Huron's YouTube channel. You may be seen or heard as part of these broadcasts, and your name, comments, and presentation materials will become part of the public record. And with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome all of you back to the new year. And it's good to see your smiling faces. Haven't seen no since last year. So with that, just as remarks to begin the meeting, I'm just going to make you aware that we have a very full agenda. So I'm going to ask that all comments be concise so that we can navigate through all the reports in a timely manner. So with that, we're going to get right to it. And we have an agenda to approve if someone's willing to do that. So that's Councillor Basnet, Councillor Harding seconds that. Those in favor? That is carried. Is there any pecuniary interest to declare at this time? Seeing none. The minutes of our previous meeting. Is there anyone willing to adopt those minutes? That's Councillor Becker and Councillor Dietrich. Those in favor? That is carried. And we are starting off with our delegations. And we have Gary Eagleson here to present to us. So Gary, welcome to the podium. And Gary is here to provide information on the Class 1, 2, and 3 agricultural land in Southern Ontario. So Gary, and I think you've been made aware of the time constraints. So Gary, when you're ready, go ahead.
Warden Heffer and Susan for allowing me to do this, and to the fellow councillors. I brought this suitcase, or a briefcase, I should say, as a visit. My father-in-law brought this to this chamber 45 years ago when he was warden. So I brought it out of the basement. To put this into perspective, I want to give you a little start where my wife's fifth grandfather walked from Pennsylvania to Waterloo in 1798, and he liked what he saw. He walked back to Pennsylvania, and then he brought his family with a wagon, and they settled. And the farm he settled is now where the Pioneer Tower is in Waterloo, which maybe some of you are familiar with. That was his farm. We visited it, I know, in 1980, and it was still quite open. I visited a couple of years ago and I was shocked. You can't even see the tower until you're like right there because of houses and fitness clubs and that sort of thing. It puts it into perspective because that was 236 years ago, roughly. And things really changed in that timeline. Why this is kind of important is we're losing our Class 1, 2, and 3 farmland, cropland, I should say, rapidly. Next slide. That is a particular website. I know you've got this on your computer or your laptops. You can visit that. It talks about soils, soil classification. Richard Heck there, that was part of the authors, is a Ontario Institute of Agrologists member with me. I thought it was done very well. To begin, the Ice Age we're familiar with, 13,000 years ago was 1,000 feet thick in this area. And of course, as it was leaving, it transformed from Hudson's Bay down through to Lake Erie. Next slide. Really, Ontario is made up of 3 distinct areas: the Hudson Plain ecosystem, the Boreal Shield ecosystem, and the Mixed Wood Plains ecosystem. And that's really what Southern Ontario actually is. And it makes up just 9% of Ontario. Okay, so this is going to focus on that. That's a little map of Southern Ontario, the mixed wood area. But that green area is where I'm saying a lot of the population should be going to, because we're eating up our cropland like very rapidly. Next slide. In 2018, our agricultural land accounted for 53.2% of the land base here in Southern Ontario, which was about 4.5 million hectares of land, and that's from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Forests accounted for 23%, and urban development, of course, covered about 11%. Again, that's in 2018, and various cities and towns and villages. The problem now is urban industrial development is eating away at the 53.2% of the agricultural land. This particular area is the most populated area of Canada, and with ever increasing populations. Next. I brought this particular book, Limits to Growth. That's a book I studied in university in 1973. I paid 50 cents for it. And if you try and get this book, you can order it. I've seen them for $250 today. Hopefully your library has it. It's very interesting to read, because what I'm saying was known 50 years ago. And this particular book was written based on the Rome Institute Symposium of 1969, and they were predicting what the world would be like in 50 years. And frankly, they were spot on. I really would, it's worth a read. A little statistical, but it contained firstly that the environmental impact of human society has become heavier between 1900 and 1972, obviously, and pollution and everything else happens because of that. Our planet is physically limited in that humanity cannot continue to use more physical resources and generate more emissions. Of course, that's common sense. Next slide. Third, the authors caution that it is possible and even likely that the human ecological footprint will overshoot the carrying capacity of the planet. I think we're starting to see that. Once humanity has entered this unsustainable territory, we will have to move back into sustainable territory, either through managed decline of activity, or we will be forced to move back through collapse caused by brutal inherent processes of nature and market, and we could say war. The fifth message is one of hope. The authors state that the challenge of overshoot from decision delay is real, but easily solvable if human society decided to act, meaning that forward-looking policies could prevent humanity from overshooting the aforementioned planetary limits. Next, that's kind of why I'm here. Lastly, the author advocated for an early start. That was in 1972, so they proposed 1975 to achieve this smooth transition, and it's been nothing but since 1975. Okay, oh, and that's this particular book that I mentioned you really should read. Next. It has been widely discussed that Ontario's been taking 320 acres of cropland per day in Ontario. And that's widely authored since 2018. And I think I dare say it's even more than that now. Statistics Canada based on November 14, 2023 says there is approximately 11,776,071 million acres of land in Southern Ontario. This makes up as follows. Cropland is 9,051,000, and then there's some seeded pasture, natural lands, summer fallow, and all others, you know, gravel, pits and that. 2 minutes. Okay, next slide. Between 2001 and 2022, Canada lost 9.9. No, sorry, Canada lost 9.9 million acres, which is about equivalent of all the cropland here in southern Ontario. For every 1 million increase in population, we lose 530,000 or 530 square acres of, square kilometers of land, which is a lot. I would recommend reading Dr. Laudermilk's. I don't have time to discuss that, but it would be worth you seeing and reading that book. It's on the internet. It's about 37 pages, so it's really good. Next slide. Getting to the end. So this is kind of important. Using the same agricultural land going out of production from 2016 to 2021, which was 320 acres per day, and using the existing class 1 and 2 and 3 agricultural land, what is the expected timeline before every square foot of cropland will be used up in southern Ontario? So working backwards, I've got 77.492 years. That's not very long, which is the 320 acres times 365 days divided by the 9,051,000 acres. That is well within your possible grandchildren's lifetime. If you have a 4-year-old, it should be 82 in that particular scenario. Next slide. So there, what I've done, the Armageddon date, it comes out I did this for the Ontario Institute of Agrologists on November 16th. May 17th, 2103 at 12 p.m. Every square foot of cropland will be gone in southern Ontario. Where will we grow our crops for our burgeoning population? We could discuss what can be done, but I leave that to your fine discussions. And if you have any questions, I'm available thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And I will go to council if there is any questions that you had for Gary at this time. And seeing none, then I would ask if there's a willingness to receive the report. So that's Councillor Noel and Councillor Anderson seconding that. Those in favor, that is carried.
Oh.
So thank you, Gary. So we are going to go now to councillor comments. Open it up for anybody on council if there's any comments that you would have. Seeing none, then we'll move on to item 8, which is the consent agenda, items 8.1 through 8.5. And is there any specific item on the consent agenda that anybody wants to speak to? If not, then I'd be looking for motion to approve and receive the consent agenda. And that's Councillor Vanstone. Councillor Ginn seconds that. Those in favor? That is carried. We're moving along to planning and development. And as we begin our planning applications this morning, our Director of Planning, Sandra Weber, is going to share some comments. So Sandra, when you're ready, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just before Sarah gets into the details of this next severance application in Bluewater, I just wanted to provide some higher level context and background information for Council's consideration. So similar to the application we discussed last month, the purpose of this next application that Sarah will be presenting is to sever a residence and accessory buildings from a farm. The goal of provincial policy and our local official plans is to protect agricultural lands by avoiding fragmentation into smaller parcels to allow for future flexibility and changes in agriculture, trying to avoid conflict and incompatible uses with farming. This is the reason for strong severance policies in areas of prime agricultural land such as Huron County. So the policies do not permit the severance of residential lots unless the residence is surplus to a farming operation, meaning that the applicant must own another farm with a residence in order to qualify as surplus to their needs. In this case, it does not qualify as surplus because the applicant does not own another farm with a house on it. And they also have indicated that they're not interested in what we call the backward surplus severance, where there would be a condition naming the purchaser of the retained lands that may qualify for a surplus severance. So again, on this application, the Huron County Federation of Agriculture has expressed concerns about applications that don't meet severance policies and the impact on the future of agriculture in the county. And they have also indicated that they wish to attend the meeting this morning and may wish to provide comments at the appropriate time in the agenda today. So again, while there are no precedents set in making planning decisions, and each one is decided upon based on its own merits, it is reasonable to expect that we will see more applications submitted that don't meet the policies, sort of expecting to have a consistent decision from members of the public. So I just wanted to provide that background information for council. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Worden, I would pass it over to Sarah to provide the details of this next application.
So Sarah, you're ready. And just before Sarah starts, just a reminder, we have several planning applications in front of us. And in order for everybody to have an opportunity for comments, I will remind everyone that our procedural bylaw permits 4 minutes per person to speak. So just so everybody's aware of that as we go into the process. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. I'm just going to share my screen here. So thank you, Sandra, as well for the initial comments. As noted, this application is for a request for surplus dwelling severance in the municipality of Bluewater for lands located along Par Line. To provide some context, this parcel is located north of Hensel and Zurich along Par Line. The subject lands are outlined here in an image on the slide. The parcel is outlined in yellow and the severed parcel outlined in red. The proposed severed parcel is 3.8 acres in size with a retained parcel size of 96 hectares. The subject lands are designated agriculture and natural environment and in the Bluewater official plan, and they are zoned general agricultural AG1 and natural environment zone 2, NE2 in the Bluewater zoning bylaw. This sketch is provided by the applicant showing the approximate severed parcel they do wish to sever, including the building or the dwelling and then some outbuildings. Some site images here, a view from the laneway, and that shows the house on the left and then the outbuildings on the right, and then the 2 images on the top right and bottom right, which show the barn proposed to stay with the parcel and the dwelling. Municipality of Bluewater staff and council did receive the application. Staff suggested conditions to be incorporated with those. They were provided in the planning report before council today. And Bluewater Council did recommend the application for approval subject to the conditions in the attached reports. No comments were received from the Conservation Authority, that being Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority. And no concerns noted from staff again, and provided the conditions are proposed that were included in the report. As noted by Sandra, the Huron County Federation of Agriculture did submit correspondence on this application. They outline the importance of planning practices that protect prime farmland, the increased incidence of land use conflicts that could impede future agricultural operations if we continue to sever off dwellings that are not surplus. And they understand the application is not proving surplus, and they recognize this as a requirement in the provincial planning statement, the Huron County official plan, and the Bluewater official plan. We did also receive one comment from a neighbor noting a formal objection to the severance, identifying it is not surplus, and they did request the barn to be demolished, and they did have a concern with the original parcel size. Just for council consideration, it was outlined in the report, but this did come before Bluewater Council initially at a larger parcel size. Bluewater Council deferred that application, indicating the applicant are recommending he reduce the parcel size and also try to prove surplus. He did come back with a reduction in the size, but he still did not prove surplus. So in review, again, as noted, the provincial planning statement prohibits the creation of new residential lots in the prime agricultural area, except for a resident surplus to a farming operation. The owner does own another farm property. He is owns a property he is trying to use as surplus, but it is within the urban settlement area boundary of Varna. It is not a farm property, so that does not qualify for surplus. The proposed severance is not a result of farm consolidation by the owner himself, nor does he plan to sell the retained between lands to a qualifying farmer, and no other residential lot creation is permitted in prime agricultural areas. The policy direction, as noted, is also included in the county official plan and the Blue Water official plan. This consent application is not consistent with the provincial planning statement, does not conform to the policies of the county official plan nor the Blue Water official plan, and does not meet the requirements of section 5124 of the Planning Act. For these reasons, it is recommended the consent application be denied.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, for the overview as we begin the process. So I'll just make you aware now that we are entering the part of the meeting where members of the public can make comments, and anyone that wishes to speak can do so either in person here, or if you're on virtual, you can use the raised hand function in Zoom and get a hold of us that way. So I'm going to start off. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? And seeing none in the room, I do believe we do have Rob Vandenhengel from the Huron County Federation Agricultural wishing to speak at this time. And Clerk Susan, is he available to do that?
Rob, I'm going to be sending you a request through virtually to become a panelist. If you'd like to speak, please accept that direction.
Greetings, Mr. Warden. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm the current president of the Huron County Federation of Agriculture, and I also sit on their planning committee. I just want to reiterate the same points that the planner had brought up about us having an opposition to it. This planning item. We feel that if the planning department has a problem with it because it doesn't meet certain standards that at the Federation as we do as well. I just want to reiterate the same points that we put in our letter that all members received.
Thank you for that, Rob. I'm going to ask one more time. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? And Clerk Cronin, are you aware of anybody else?
I see no one else who wishes to speak in opposition of this application.
All right, then I'm going to ask if there's anyone willing to speak in favor of this application.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application at this time.
All right, and I'm going to go to the applicant, and I believe Glenn is with us in person. So Glenn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, county councilors, and staff. I welcome the opportunity here to provide some information regarding our severance application. We have lived and farmed this land for 53 years, raised our family on it, but unfortunately, our family is not going to continue the farming business. We have a daughter in Calgary and a son in Vancouver, and our other daughter is in London. So none of those have expressed any interest in continuing this on. The farmland will be sold to another farmer in 2032 as part of our overall estate planning that we established back in 2012. And when that happens, this will be a surplus farm building to the purchaser because that's the way it will go. This farm will not be purchased by somebody who wants to start farming because a young person today does not have the economic wherewithal that they're going to be able to purchase it and live on it. So it's going to be purchased by somebody who already has a large farming operation, and it'll get severed in that time. So if you deny the application today, I can guarantee you 6 years from now, the application will come back in front of you. The other thing too is a severance today ensures that this is going to stay as a residential lot. Every day I drive out our laneway, I look across the road at a place where there used to be a house. There was a family lived in it until 2014. It was sold to another large farmer. And in 2020, the house was demolished and it currently is occupied by a truck weigh scale. Now, I think it's important that these residential lots be maintained on the concession roads, because we need to have the population in the municipality, and we need to have the assessment that these houses bring within the municipality. A severance today ensures that this is going to stay as a residential lot. All the buildings on the proposed severed portion are in good repair and therefore should be permitted because they offer storage capability. I have not had livestock in any of the barns since 1987, so they're not used for that purpose. The proposed severed portion is excess because Lois and I do own another house in Varna. Now, this house in Varna was on the farm where I was raised. My mother severed it in 2016, and at the end of it owned both the house and the farm. So what we're proposing here is not an unusual situation. So that, in summary then, I think it's important that we do have the families continuing to stay on the concession roads. The creation of this residential lot is going to ensure that it stays as a residential lot, and it provides assessment to the municipality, and it will the rest of the farmland will be sold. It's not like we're going to end up with 2 parcels of land that is going to stay within the family for an extended period of time, because I don't have any family members that want to farm it, so therefore it's going to be sold at some time in the future. So anybody have any questions? Be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you for your comments, Glenn. And at this time, I'm going to go to council for comments. And I'm going to start with those reps from Blue Water to lead it off and give some perspective on your council's interest in this application.
Okay, I'll start, I guess. Yeah, we, as said by the planner, it came to council. There was concern about the nuance of our policy is we, if you own a property, as you heard, or I'm going to sell it to another farmer. I want to touch on that. Back in 1995, 94, the planner here, Mr. Davison, he actually started a process that allowed severances of a surplus. The policy of a particular township was they couldn't sever it. The farmer owned it. He wanted to keep the land, but here's his house. And it just wasn't going to work. So Mr. Davison, listening to the politicians, they said, listen, but it doesn't make sense. Why don't we allow that? So that was allowed. What that did was by 2000, a new policy was set in place for a lot of townships in Huron County. They went, well, if it's surplus, we'll allow it. The township right beside it, Hay, where this one is, didn't allow severances. In amalgamation, here we had one township that allowed things, another one that didn't, and the people changed their minds a bit. So we allow severances. I do have one question I don't want to forget this, to my colleague in the Federation of Agriculture, so don't let me forget to ask that question. But getting back to our council, we agreed that this is a pretty big package in the idea that we talked about trying to keep farmland, and it wasn't going to pass. So I suggested as the chair that I can call a motion today, but I didn't think it was going to pass. And Mr. Hayter, he understood, I think, the nuances, and so he went back, and he did come back to council with a very narrow severance, and council came to the conclusion that so if he sells it to somebody else on paper, even not even selling it right away, but says he will, he can then keep it. Council decided that we got back to some principles about saving farmland, and we passed the motion. It wasn't unanimous, but that's not the point. And we're here today. My question to the Federation of Agriculture, if Rob is still there, is the policy of Huron County Federation that we do not allow any more severances of farm homesteads. I need to get that clarified in my head.
We've just brought Rob Vandenhengel back into the meeting. Rob, did you hear the question, and can you give an answer to that?
Yes, I did hear the question. The policy for the Huron County Federation of Agriculture is that class 1 farmland should remain as farmland. In regards to severances, I'm not aware off the top of my head what our policy is in regards to that, but we're pretty clear when it comes to class 1, class 2, or class 1 farmland for sure, is that it should remain as farmland. And that when a severance comes up that includes some class 1 farmland as part of it, our main concern is future conflicts when the current owners sell it to someone else who maybe isn't aware of a lot of agricultural practices.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I do believe that we do allow severances. The issue is the nuance of this. To your point about keeping as much of the farmland in farmland, I think council got Mr. Hayter to agree to that on this case. We just had one or two, and it's been brought up that we've allowed this nuance to happen. I still think it and I think the council believed in that also, that we're still keeping the integrity of each one of these coming to council. As far as a severance goes, and it was established already that once a severance happens, it doesn't matter if it followed the purity of the rule that you sold it to someone else, it still becomes an issue of minimum distance separation and all those issues that Rob is talking about. And I see it firsthand as a farmer on a person coming in and wanting to be like the city. Those are other issues that we need to deal with. But that's why this council and Blue Water supported this. Because we allow severances and it fits in within enough criteria, and it is protecting farmland to the best of our ability. And that's why we support it. And I'm asking that we follow through with that as council here.
So I'm going to go to council now for discussion, questions if you have any, or comments that you would like to make. Pastor Warden Ginn, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden. And I'll just speak to this one because we have several today, and I think it's going to pertain to a lot of them. But our rules state a certain thing, and the reason that they state that is because we have to follow the provincial policy statement. And I guess everybody needs to ask themselves, if we didn't have to follow that, would we maintain these rules where you cannot sever it unless it's a surplus to a farmer? So I want to say that Mr. Hayter brought up a number of issues that I feel the same way about. And that is, first of all, if a farmer has a surplus farm lot and sells it to somebody from Toronto, is that somehow less of an issue than if it's not a farmer, that doesn't have another house, sells it to somebody from Toronto? To me, there's no difference there. We're forced to have it that it's only surplus to another farmer, fine. But I have heard many times over my lifetime, long before I got on council, about farmers renting out houses to renting out their house. And many times I've heard people say the first time there's a serious expense coming up in that house, it's coming down. So I agree with what Mr. Hayter said. We don't want to depopulate the countryside. It makes servicing the countryside very, very difficult for things like broadband internet, natural gas, even plowing the roads. How long can we continue to plow roads where there's no assessment on those roads? And what's that do to a farmer that has a pig barn that's got to get the feed truck in? There's all kinds of other issues. So neither one are ideal. I'm not sure what we've been doing, allowing these severances, is less ideal than what it would be if those houses come down. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else from council? Pastor Warden McClellan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I don't disagree with the comments that just came out. The problem is that we're dealing with these one-offs where we really, as a council, need to have a long-range plan of what we're going to do. I'm not saying this is the ultimate thing to do, but you know, you've got a 3-acre parcel there that if you turned it back into farmland and did 3 acres on the edge of an urban settlement, you can build 30 to 50 homes instead of having one. And intensification is more the thing that we've changed to over the course of the last decade of things that we want to do. Now, will it become inconvenient for individual farmers? Yes. Will it go against some of the valid arguments that Councillor Ginn stated? It will. But is that a better long-range plan? And those are the things that we need to get in our head of what we want to do down the road, more than just deal with them one at a time. That's the issue that we're going to keep running into.
Any other comments from council? All right. We've had the application presented to us. We've had some thoughts and very brief last comments, Councillor Klopp.
Well, I'll make the motion that we accept the process that municipality of Blue Water made first off. And it is on a comment and the good point that Councillor McClellan talked about. It seems like it's a one-off, but then again, I go back to that history of Gary Davidson. He did a one-off, but then obviously doing 5-year reviews, there was a policy. The real talk happened at the 5-year review. It just so happens that Blue Water is doing a 5-year review right now. And you made a good point. I'm going to bring this up as a discussion. See where the general public is in Blue Water on this, because that's how those policies are changed and or not changed. So I appreciate that. But we are where we are. I make the motion that we accept Blue Water's recommendation and look for a seconder, see what happens.
So your motion would be approve the consent application as Blue Water has recommended with the conditions that go with that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Harding is seconding that. All right. Any further discussion on this application? I'm going to call the question. Those that are in favor of this motion. Hands up, please. That motion does carry. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hayter. So Sarah, you're with us with the next application as well, and this is your opportunity to present us with that application.
Through your worship as well, we will need to do an effective public and agency comments for the previous one. So I'll just share my screen with the recommendation here for council. So it would be 5A and then 5B and 6B.
So 5A and
5B and 6B.
So is there someone willing to put that forward? That's past Warden Ginn. Councillor Vanstone is seconding that. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks for that reminder, Sarah. So go ahead when you're ready, Sarah, for C50.
All right, thank you, through your worship. I'm just going to locate my presentation here. All right, thank you again, Council. So this application is for another surplus dwelling located in Blue Water. This is located along Mill Road. And just provide some context here, this parcel is located west of Varna and east of the village of Bayfield. The proposed severed parcel is approximately 7.8 acres in size, or 3.16 hectares, and the retained lands is 59.92 acres, or 24.24 hectares. The lands are designated agriculture and natural environment, and they are zoned general agriculture AG1 and natural environment zone 2 NE2. So the image on the left just shows the subject parcel. The lands to be severed are proposed outlined in red, and the lands to be retained are loaded in yellow. This is a sketch that was provided by the applicant. They are proposing to include the land that has the dwelling. There is also a secondary dwelling on the property and an outbuilding. And then there is an area of land to the east of the parcel, or the dwelling, that they are also hoping to include for an overall request of 7.8 acres. The images here show on the left the dwelling that is proposed to be severed, and then on the right is the other outbuildings that are proposed to be included in the severed parcel. The municipality of Bluewater noted no concerns. Comments did help formulate conditions that were provided for council. The municipality of Bluewater did support the approval of the application. It was recommended by myself as the planner to reduce the parcel size to approximately 3 acres because it does include some land that is not required to service the dwelling or the septic system. Bluewater Council did recommend the application be approved at the original requested 7.8 acre parcel size. ABCA does not support the fragmentation of severances in the agricultural area, but they are not opposed to this severance. Huron County Public Works did note no concerns, and we had no comments from neighbors. In review of this application under the PPS, the Huron County Official Plan and the Bluewater Official Plan, the parcel does meet the surplus residence requirements for most of them, the residents and the age. The farmland does maintain a minimum 19 hectares. The owner is unable to prove surplus themselves, but they have found a purchaser to prove surplus. MDS is not a concern in this case because there is no barn on the retained lot and there's been no previous separation of the parcel. As noted before, the parcel size is rather large in size and is not required to support the dwelling or the septic system, so it was the planning recommendation to reduce it to approximately 3 acres. As noted, the application does meet the PPS and the OPI criteria with that minor exception for the parcel size. So this image here is just showing the recommendation I would make that the severed parcel be reduced to approximately 3 acres to include the dwelling and the septic system and the outbuildings. So the consent application, it'd be recommended it be approved, including a condition to reduce the severed lot size.
Okay, thank you for that background, Sarah. And again, we're at the part of the meeting where members of the public can make comments. And if anyone is wishing to do that virtually, you can use the raised hand function to get our attention. And we can go now to asking if there's anyone willing to speak in opposition to this application. And Clerk Cronin, are you aware of anyone?
I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition of this application.
Then I'm going to ask if there's anyone willing to speak in favor of this application. And again, Clerk Cronin, if anybody virtually.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application at this time.
And are you aware of the applicants wanting to say anything regarding this application?
I have sent a panelist invite to the applicant, and I believe if you just accept that invite and join the meeting. Lorne. Oh, here he comes. Perfect. Lauren, if you'd like to speak at this time. And you're muted right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead, Lauren and Deborah.
Thank you, council and warden and councilors. Yes, we've had the property since 1979, and the proposed for the severance really consists of non-agricultural and environmentally constrained portions of the property. This area is characterized by large ravines, 2 natural creeks, a pond, steep and sloping terrain, and extensive thick brush and thickets. Due to these physical and environmental features, the land is not suitable for agricultural production and cannot be reasonably found or improved for that purpose. Approximately 2 years ago, Dave Poulin, Community Forest Manager of Huron County, attended our property to assess site. And at that time, he advised against the removal of hawthorn bushes, noting their importance as habitat and food sources for pollinators, including bees, as well as other wildlife. This professional guidance reinforces the ecological sensitivity and environmental value of this land in question. The municipality of Bluewater and municipality of Central Huron have permitted severances of up to 10 acres of rough, unusable land, recognizing certain portions of rural properties contain areas that are unsuitable for agriculture due to natural constraints. Our intent of this severance is not for development or agricultural expansion, but rather to allow for long-term environmental stewardship and conservation. We are committed to maintaining the natural features of the land and protecting the water courses, vegetation, wildlife habitat, and pollinators supporting species that currently exist. We respectively request approval of this severance so that this portion of our property can continue to be managed in a manner that protects and enhances its environmental integrity.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
And I'm now going to go to council and start off from the reps from Blue Water if there's anything to speak to this, and Councillor Becker is going to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yes, Blue Water Council supported this application for the full allotment, and I support it because of what Deborah just said, conserving that marginal land that can't be farmed, and they don't want to see it tore apart piece by piece down the road. They want it kept the way it is and used for the family pleasure that is used today.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Becker. So I'm going to go to council and Past Warden McClellan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd like to ask a question. Like, if the other 4 acres that we're talking about being just left alone by itself is the best thing both for the land and the environment at that point, how is it detrimental to the severance of 3 acres, a problem with not having the other part included into it? Where is the benefit to either the farmer who's not using the land anyways and leaving it natural is the proper thing to do? How is it a benefit to adding that extra acreage to the residential lot?
Vic, you wanted to answer that question.
Either the members from Blue Water Council who've had the discussion, or it could be the property owner.
Okay, so if either one of the members would like to address that, and if not, I will ask the applicant if they would comment on that.
I think you let the applicant explain that.
So Deborah, were you able to hear that question that was presented to
sorry,
you?
there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Deborah.
Yes, no, well, it's just that it's part where Sarah wants its severance is just before the pond. And we'd like the pond, the natural creek and ravine, all to be kept within our property. We have our grandchildren, we like to downhill toboggan, etc. on it. We just would like that, because it's unworkable farmland, we'd like it kept with our parcel.
Thank you for answering the question, Deborah. Anything else from council? Councillor Noel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I have a question just because this seems to come up from time to time where there is a proposed severance and the land that is going with the severed parcel is not suitable for agriculture. It's zoned environmental. And we have this discussion, I think, on a fairly regular basis. I understand the policy that we're trying to adhere to. I also understand that we've got competing policy issues with agricultural land and maintaining our natural environment. I wonder if one of the planners could speak to whether this is a bigger question of how we deal or how we can deal with this kind of going forward on this application and on all applications when we have what is really surplus to a residence but not usable as agricultural land, so that we have some principles that we can rely on going forward consistently. Thank you.
Sandra, would you be willing to address that, please?
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. You know, the policies that the planners are reviewing are surplus policies, and it's the residence, accessory buildings, and area that's needed to service the residents that's surplus to the farm operator. It's not the agricultural lands or the natural environment lands that are surplus to a farming operation. So that's sort of the premises of the policies. Certainly, I mean, we understand that sometimes there's a bit of leeway there and based on topography or other things. But as staff reviewing these, it's important to be consistent and interpreting the policy. So which is why we're suggesting that these lands remain with the farming operation.
Thank you for that, Sandra. Anything else from council? Councillor Klopp, please.
Thank you. Appreciate the questions that came forward. I just even learned something a bit more. We didn't ask that question a little bit about the pond, where the severance line was. I think most council were just looking at the bigger picture and talking about when you brought up about Dave Pullen, who I would have never called Dave Pullen to see about cutting hawthorns down. For anybody that knows what they are, to me, they're just an oversized weed. But the fact that they actually phoned and actually Dave Pullen actually said, go ahead and do it. She was modest. Dave took the time and said about the character of the person, I guess, that we have working for us. He actually phoned back and said, I did further look. They're actually used for bees. Who knew? So they said, okay, we won't cut them out, because cutting them out would have allowed some bigger, maybe more trees that they could maybe do something with. So the fact about our policy, I think the policy is fine. The government said, make it minimum as possible. But they also said, and that's why we're here, or at our local council even, however, each case, might have some good argument. I think their argument is valid about saving. We talk about trying to keep green spaces. Well, this guarantees it. And the fact that there's a pond there and they're going to enjoy that only tells me more that they're going to care for it. Frankly, I'm speaking for me as a farmer. I don't know if I'd want to have that responsibility of that being in my property, an open pond, because there is potential for issues. And so the fact that it's going to stay with them, it's going to be their responsibility. And I hope their grandchildren, I hope somebody comes along and buys it down the road. But at least if they do buy it, they have to, even if they do nothing with it, it'll still stay in hawthorns. So I'll move the motion that for what the municipality of Blue Water stated, and see if it's seconded.
So Councillor Klopp, you're putting a motion forward to approve the consent application and excluding condition number 12 that reduced the lot size. All the other conditions stand. And Councillor Finch, are you seconding that? All right, so that is any further discussion on this application. So I'm going to call the question. Those that are in favor of the motion to approve the application, those in favor. And that motion is carried. Thank you, Sarah. There's some follow-up motions then that we need to deal with.
Yes, through your worship, just for the effect of public and agency comments, would be recommending 2A and then 5B.
So 2A and 5B. Councillor Becker would make that motion. That is seconded by Past Warden Ginn. Those in favor, that is carried. Thank you, Sarah. So Shay is going to swap out chairs with Sarah here and present to us the Terpstra application for Huron East. So Shay, once you're settled and ready, just go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Warden. I'll just pull up the slides here. Right, so this is a presentation on consent application file C32-2025. Subject property is located at 42918 Cranbrook Road in Huron East. So just for context here, I've just got an aerial image of the property location. So we're located just southeast of Brussels with frontage along Cranbrook Road in the municipality of Huron East. And then a closer look of the aerial of the subject lands here with the proposed severed parcel outlined in orange and the proposed retained lands outlined in blue. You'll note that the property is bisected by a portion of the Maitland River through the southeast and northeast corner of the farm. In the proposed severed parcel, you can see a little bit better on the left image there. contains an existing residence as well as 4 accessory buildings. I'll just note that 2 of the accessory buildings I've just shaded in or in green here, as these buildings have been constructed since the time of these aerial photos. So the purpose of this application is to create a new lot under the surplus farm severance policies, and the proposed severed land in this case is approximately 10 acres, which would consist of the existing house as well as all 4 storage sheds on the property. And then the retained lands are approximately 90 acres, which would consist of vacant farmland. The subject property is designated agriculture and natural environment in the Huron East official plan and zoned general agriculture AG1 and natural environment NE2 in the Huron East official plan or zoning bylaw, sorry. And then just a couple photographs of the property here. So on the left-hand image, we're just looking south towards Cranbrook Road at the existing residence. And then the right image just shows a more zoomed out image of that, looking at the lane that runs through the property. And then a couple images here of some of the accessory buildings on the parcel. So on the left, we're looking southeast towards the shed, which is adjacent to the river. And on the right, we are looking northwest at one of the more recently constructed shed/shops. And then lastly here, the left-hand image is showing the large long shed that's towards the rear of the severed parcel. And then the right-hand image is showing the more open shed towards the southeast side of the severed parcel. Again, this is one of the ones that was noted in green on my previous aerial photo. So as far as comments received, no comments were received from members of the public on this application. Huron East staff had no objections to the application, but did note a few comments that can be addressed as conditions. So the first being that the septic inspector noted that the records indicate several septic systems existing on the site. The applicant indicated that the septic and well that services the existing house is located south of the lane and clustered with the residence. The building department would just like confirmation that any abandoned or unused septic systems are properly decommissioned, and this has been included as a suggested condition. And then Public Works just noted that any entrance for the retained farmland should serve both as a field access and access to any accessory buildings that might remain on the retained lands, rather than having 2 separate entrances on the retained farmland. And then Huron East Council reviewed this application at their December 9th council meeting and recommended approval with the 10-acre parcel as applied for. At this meeting, the planning department recommended a condition to reduce the severed parcel size from the 10 acres proposed to 5 acres, which I'll touch more on in a minute here. And then a portion of the property is regulated by Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, so they provided some comments noting no objection to the application. From a natural hazard perspective, as the lot has safe access and an alternative building envelope outside of the floodplain associated with the river, should there ever be flooding issues. And then lastly here, the Huron County Federation of Agriculture did provide a letter noting some concerns with the size of the proposed severed parcel, noting it's in excess of the minimum size needed for the residents as outlined in the provincial planning statement, as well as the Huron County official plan policies. As such, they requested that the severed parcel size be reduced to meet this criteria, as well as suggested that the retained land be addressed for 911 purposes, and that the severed parcel be rezoned to recognize its residential use. And then getting into a review of the application here. So this application does meet several of the criteria outlined in the county and Huron East official plans for qualifying as a surplus severance. So the residence is surplus to the owners of the farm parcel who own several other farm parcels containing a house in the area. The residence is habitable and at least 15 years old, and there are no livestock barns on the property, so no MDS impacts. However, the application as submitted does not meet the requirement of minimizing the severed parcel size to be the minimum size needed to support the residents. The PPS, county, and Huron East official plans all provide the same policy direction to minimize the area of land used for the residential use so as to minimize the amount of agricultural land needed and to reduce the impact to agricultural area. The proposed severed parcel size is about 10 acres in size, which would include all 4 of those accessory buildings on the property. The buildings are currently used for storage and exceed the needs reasonable to support the residential use. As such, the application as applied for is not consistent with the provincial planning statement, nor does it conform to the county or Huron East official plans. So in order to be consistent with the PPS, county and Huron East official plans, a condition is suggested to reduce the severed parcel size from the requested 10 acres to 5 acres, as I've shown on the aerial image here. So the recommended size would be just over 5 acres and would include the existing house as well as 2 of the accessory buildings on the property that are closest to the residents. The other 2 buildings would remain on the retained lands and could be used for equipment storage, farm implements, etc., accessory to the farm use. The suggested size here provides some flexibility for the use of several storage buildings accessory to the residents, while also maintaining a reduced parcel size. I will note in this scenario, access to the buildings of the retained lands could be addressed either through a new entrance and a lane on the farmland, or through an easement that could be considered to use the existing access over the severed parcel. If a new access is the preferred option in this scenario, a lane could follow the existing tree line that I've kind of marked up in the red dashed line along the north edge of the severed parcel here, which would result in the least amount of cropped land needed to accommodate a new entrance. I will also note that it came up that there is an existing underground hydro service to service the large building at the back. That's the long green shed that's kind of cut off in this image here. If the hydro service is desired to continue, hydro service could be addressed either through a new service following the new entrance, or an easement could be established over the severed lands. And then here I've just provided a summary of the recommended conditions, and I'll just point out a couple here. So condition 10 recommends a reduction of the severed parcel size to 2.1 hectares or 5 acres, as per my previous sketch there. And then condition 11 similarly would provide the option for either a new entrance or an easement for hydro and access to the retained buildings. And then I will also point out condition 8 here addresses the building department's requirement to decommission any unused septic systems on the property. And then condition 9 would address the municipal address addressing per Huron County Federation of Agriculture comments. So although the application as submitted does not meet the requirements, the application will comply with the policies with the suggested condition. So it's recommended that the application be approved subject to the conditions, including a condition to reduce the severed parcel size from 10 acres to 5 acres.
Thank you for that background, Shay. So again, we're at the part of this meeting where the public can make comments. And again, you can use the raised hand function if you're joining us virtually to get our attention for that. And going to start by asking if there's anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application. Clerk Cronin, are you aware of anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
For those that are participating virtually, if you'd like to use the raised hand feature to show if you would like to speak. At this time, I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition of this application.
And I'm going to ask, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Again, Clerk Cronin.
Same process. If you'd like to speak in favor, please use the raise hand feature. And at this time, I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application.
And I do believe the applicants are joining us virtually. And if they would like to speak, this is your opportunity, both to Jeremy and Deborah Terpstra, if you are available to go through the raised hand function and let Susan know that.
I'm just going to send you a panelist invite. And if you accept it, then you can come into the meeting and speak.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Deborah.
Warden and staff, thank you for listening to my comments on behalf of Terpstra Farms. We are hoping that council will consider the 10-acre lot size due to the simplicity. We bought this property October of 2024, and it was used for a business in the past. So the yard is compacted and mostly gravel. If we keep the yard and the back shed for agriculture purposes, we'll have to put in a separate driveway and a separate hydro service, which will use up agricultural land, plus the cost to do it. The size of the shed does seem substantial, but the sidewall height of the buildings at the back are not really suitable for farm equipment storage. So we don't really have much use for it. But I guess, yeah, that's all I have to say at this time.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. I'm going to go to those members from Huron East Council first to give your background on Huron East decision on this application.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. There was a pretty good discussion at the Huron East Council meeting about this. We were concerned about the size of the parcel. What swayed the majority of council to agree with the 10-acre size is the fact that although we could sever a smaller parcel, we didn't want to have to actually take land from the farm itself, put in both an electrical and a roadway service. So technically we'd be ending up losing more farmland if we went to a smaller lot size, which sounds counterproductive, but that's unfortunately just the way it worked out. The unfortunate part that I'm finding is that there's always good justification of why you can bend the rules. You know, if we go ahead and approve this one at 10%, which Huron East Council debated and decided was the smarter thing to do. We had a presenter this morning that said 300 and some acres every day gets removed from class 1, 2, and 3 land. If this one gets approved, as the last two did, Huron County alone today will be at the 5% of the quota for the day. So we're constantly making those changes, and we are part of the problem. But again, Huron East's decision was to not lose any more farmland than there is now, to prevent having a separate laneway and hydro service onto the farm. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McClellan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you, and also thanks, Shay, for the great report you had as usual. Just to build on to Mayor Bernie's or Councillor Bernie's comments, this, and also to Deborah Terpstra as well, this piece of property with the buildings seem to be scattered here and there was actually the old MDL door property. So her point to it being a yard with gravel and stuff is very valid. It just, you know, it isn't just been drove over. So we as council decided what was the worst of two evils. Take good farmland out of production to build a lane and possibly hydro to service the buildings at the back, or leave the lot as it is in gravel. And we chose the latter. So any other questions, I can answer them as well. I'm quite familiar with the property, but that's how I feel. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up for council. Councillor Klopp, please.
Thank you. No surprise to anyone. My argument always is we have the lower tiers have policies, and when there was 15 of us and how many townships there were, they had different rules. I just talked about that. We are now amalgamated. I don't know if it's more mature, but it definitely is a factor. And if they've heard their arguments of why they chose this, I have no trouble with it. But again, I have to have some principles. We're talking about minimizing agricultural land. I've talked about it a few minutes ago. Clearly, this is land that is not agricultural anymore. It's being severed. Talking back about that report, Woolwich Township, and that report should go down to that area. There's about 1,000 acres that the farmers don't want to sell, and they're being told by their politicians that it should be ate up. That's the problem, not this. So we always have these small parcels. So I think council made the right decision. They're minimizing, clearly there isn't any agricultural land there. I support their motion at the local level.
Councillor Finch, please.
And I would concur, through the ward, I would concur with Councillor Klopp and my friends from Huron East. You know, we talk about taking land out of agricultural use. This land has been growing crops for how many years? It's going to be applied to that number of acres that's being taken out, but it's not being used anyway. So I would agree with the lower tier and move that if that's necessary.
Any other comments from County Council? Then I'd be looking for some direction to go forward with the motion. Oh, so I apologize. So motion is put forward by Councillor Finch is to support Huron East, and that is seconded by Past Warden McClellan. And that is, just so everybody's aware, to approve the consent application and with the conditions excluding condition number 10, which limited the lot size. So just to make sure everybody's clear. So that's the motion on the floor. I'm going to ask those in favor of that motion. And that motion is carried. And Shay, do you have some follow-up motions for us with that decision?
Yes, thank you, Warden. In terms of effective public and agency comments, it would be 2A and 5B.
So 2A and 5B. Do I have someone to put that forward? So that's Councillor Goderich. Councillor McClellan seconds that. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Shay. And I think you're going to switch out the seat for Sarah. So Sarah, welcome. Is this your first presentation before County Council?
This is.
And we will do our best to not make you nervous.
Thank you.
So Sarah, when you are ready, you go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. So I will present to you file C51, which is a lot enlargement severance in the municipality of Morris Turnberry at the intersection of Clyde Line and Morris Road. Just for more context, it's about southeast of Belgrave. So the intent of this severance, it's helpful to look at the photo above for understanding. So the applicant is proposing a lot enlargement of 84670 Clyde Line, which is that hatched, black hatched parcel, about 2 acres there, by severing 30 acres of the subject property, 25.5 acres of which are natural environment features, and about 4.5 acres of agriculture, to be merged to that black hatched parcel to create a severed parcel of about 32 acres and a retained parcel about 70 acres. The retained parcel is primarily agriculture with some natural environment features as well. So for clarity, this is maintaining 2 parcels, but in the configuration of the above. For some visuals here, this is the retained farm parcel looking east from Clyde Line. The lot to be enlarged is on the west there. The retained is the cropped land. The severed parcel, so here we have the lot to be enlarged on the right. You could kind of see the house in the back there. The severed to the left. And then this is just a visual moving it down to the corner just to show some of the natural environment features. In terms of comments, we did not receive any comments from the public or the Huron County Federation of Agriculture. The county biologist and the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority were circulated as well, and they had no concerns or objections. The report was brought to Morris Turnberry Council on November 18th, and it was recommended approval.
In terms of planning policy perspective, the provincial planning statement and the Huron County official plan do permit severances in the prime agricultural area for legal and technical reasons, including minor lot adjustments, and also permit severances where parcels are a size of appropriate for the type of agricultural uses in the area, which are then set out in the local OPs, official plans. So the application is not consistent with these policies because the boundary adjustment is not considered to be minor from planning's perspective due to the overall acreage involved. The retained parcel does not meet the minimum lot size requirement of 38 hectares, which is about 94 acres in Section 3 of the Morris Turnberry official plan. Locally, Morris Turnberry has more specific agriculture and natural environment policy guidelines. It really hinges, again, on not meeting the minor aspect of these. Just outlining the conditions that were recommended approval by Morris Turnberry. These are pretty standard for lot adjustment severances. So because the proposed consent does not meet the policies of the provincial planning statement, the Huron County official plan, or the Morris Turnberry official plan, the proposed consent is recommended to be denied.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for that background on this application. And again, we are at the part of the meeting where members of the public can make comments, and anyone wishing to do so virtually, just use the raised hand function to make us aware that you would like to speak. And I'm going to start by asking if there's anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application. And Clerk Cronin, are you aware of anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition of this application at this time.
And I'm going to ask, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? And again, Clerk Cronin, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor?
I see no one that wishes to speak in application of this, in favor of this application at this time.
And we do have the applicant, Claus Uritzma. And Claus, if you would like to join us, you would like to speak to your application here. Go ahead when you're ready, Claus.
Mr. Warden, thank you. And thank you to the County Council to listen to me today. Clearly, just listening to, it's my first time here, so I'm a bit nervous, but clearly everyone's concerned about losing farmland. And in this case, we're not going to do that. All we're doing is moving a lot line. My name's Claus Yardsma. I'm married to Shelley Yardsma. She's used to be a fisher. A little history. We have both lived, worked, and farmed in Huron County, and specifically Morris Turnberry, for all of our married life, which is 45 years. So we're clearly not new to the area. The property in question was first severed in 1985. Since that time, all the original buildings were removed and a new home was built, which Shelley and I purchased from the former owner. We did not build that home. Rightly or wrongly, we purchased the property without a survey. I wouldn't recommend that, by the way, but after a few years, we had the property surveyed by Doug Culbert and noted that some issues were needed to be rectified. The most notable being the property line went right through a new shop that was built shortly after the new home was built, all before our time. And I think that was on in your submission, if I'm not mistaken. Wayne Fear from Monaway Farms, who couldn't be here today, he's got the flu. The current owner of the adjacent property, and I had a discussion about how to rectify the situation and came to an agreement to propose a severance that you have in front of you today. I was looking for to add a few acres of hay ground to our existing farm operation, which consists of our original farm, which is a half-mile north on Clyde Line, where my daughter and her family live, and another 100 acres that we have a half-mile to the east on Brussels Road, where my son and his family live and farm, which incidentally was my wife's parents' farmstead. So that farm has been in the family for roughly 60 years. So we're not new to any of this. Collectively, we farm 200 acres raising Black Angus heifers, and we've done that for 30 years. Wayne Fear thought in giving up the 4.5 acres that would be part of that workable section that we're talking about in question is to solve an age-old problem he has with a small field, large equipment without proper access, and he actually doesn't actually have access to that corner without some trouble. So we looked at this as a win-win situation for both of us. We could get a few more acres of hay. We could no longer need to navigate large equipment in the small field without proper access, and not to mention it would solve the existing boundary line going right through our shop. So thinking that this severance could be considered unique in nature, I had a meeting in the Morris Township Municipal Office with Sarah here shortly after making this decision, and I said, what are the negatives? Because I need to know what they are so I can concentrate on that first. On that day, she mentioned the retained property would be undersized from the recommended 75 to 70 acres. Thinking that would be considered a minor adjustment, I decided to move forward with the application. That brought us to the report you have in front of you, which I might add is a bit more detailed than what we discussed. However, she didn't have a lot of time to look at it in the meantime. I can be prepared here this morning to kind of review every point of that report, but we're not going to do that in the essence of time. The one point I wanted to add out is sort of a point out as the report refers to 3.3.3 regarding the Morris Township official plan that refers to minimum acreage. However, missing from your report, and in the same sentence, the official plan makes reference and provides for smaller acreages 3.41 and 3.42. It says, where parcels being conveyed and retained are for agricultural purposes, a consent may be granted, provided that both the severed and the retained parcels constitute suitable agricultural operations, either by themselves in conjunction with other lands owned and by the operator. Both of us, Monoway Farms and us, are going to continue farming that property if that's a concern. And therefore, we look at it as a minor adjustment. I'm not sure the size of the property creates a small or large adjustment, but in my mind, this is a minor adjustment. We're not adding a third piece of property. We're just simply dividing the two properties differently. I could go on here to split hairs and dissect policies, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Our intention is to farm the 4.5 acres that's left over there, add it to the 200 acres we currently have. We have consent from the neighborhood. We have consent from Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, whom I had a meeting with prior to as well, just to be sure everything was fine. We have consent from the Morris Township municipal staff, and we have unanimous consent from the Morris Turnberry Township Council. So,
Claus, just if we could wrap that up here.
I'm going to, last thing here, I'm here hoping you will support and agree with the council of Morris Turnberry and provide consent to move this project forward.
So thank you for the comments, Claus. And just to give you the background on where Morris Turnberry was coming from with this application, the Morris Turnberry Council was supportive of the application. The way it was presented to us, it was not having any impact or change in agricultural land use, and it was basically a lot line adjustment, and we were satisfied that the application was good that way. So with that background, I'm going to open it up for council for comments. Councillor Finch, and then past Warden McClellan.
Yeah, through you, Warden. I think so the lower tiers all know their municipalities best, so I would concur with what Morris Turnberry's done. I would move this to get it approved.
Okay. Past Warden McClellan.
Did he make the motion?
Yes, he did.
Then I will second it. This is just good management.
Okay. All right then. So motion put forward then that to approve the consent application as applied for, subject to the conditions outlined in the report. Any other comments regarding this motion? Those in favor? And that motion is carried. So Claus, go ahead. Thank you. And Sarah, you will have some follow-up motions that we will need to address.
So that will be 2A and 5B of the public and agency comments.
So 2A and 5B. Do I have Councillor Goderich would put that forward? Councillor McClellan seconding that. Those in favor? That is carried. All right. I am going to call for a short recess just for a comfort break. And we still have some planning issues to deal with, but I think we'll do that just for a few minutes and we'll reconvene less than 5 minutes. Okay, we are going to continue on with our planning business this morning. And next up is the Central Huron Official Plan 5-year review. And Craig Metzger is here to present in person. And this is not a public meeting, just so you're aware. We've already had that. So Craig, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Warden Heffer. Good morning. This, as mentioned, is a presentation on Central Huron's official plan review. Central Huron has come to the end of the review, has adopted an amendment, and that amendment is before you today for approval as the approval authority. So a 5-year review, what's involved with that, the official plan, it sets the long-term vision for the community, looks at what the goals and needs are of the community and how those have changed since the last review. The last review was in 2010. The 5-year review updates both the policies and the mapping. And then, as I mentioned, it was adopted by Central Huron Council, and that was last month on December 1st. The OP needs to follow both the provincial direction and the county direction. So your direction would be through the county official plan, and both the provincial direction, which is in the provincial planning statement and the Planning Act. The proposed amendment does follow that direction, as well as your own county official plan. There was extensive public consultation done as part of the review. There were personalized registered letters sent out to 51 landowners of properties who were subject to major proposed settlement area adjustments, whether we were adding or deleting their property from a settlement area, and any other significant designation changes. Postcards were sent to all property owners in the municipality, so that was just over 4,000 postcards. 7 open houses were held in April and May of last year. We did advertise in the 4 local newspapers for the public meeting and the open houses, and the public meeting was held in September. There were property-specific discussions throughout the process. There were questions from property owners. There were property owners who were concerned with proposed changes. Those were all considered by Central Huron Council. There were changes to the draft over that in response to questions and comments from the public. And in fact, there was 3 drafts prepared before the 4th and final draft was adopted. Key changes, some examples, there's a heightened inclusion with respect to Indigenous communities and the need for early engagement. Obviously, policies to reflect changes in provincial legislation. There's been many in the last 5 to 6 years. Policies related to climate change and how to adapt to climate change. There were changes made with respect to natural environment, the mapping and policies done with the local lens from Central Huron's perspective on their properties. We clarified and tried to simplify the language in the agricultural sector section with respect to residence as accessory to agriculture, things like farmhouses, additional residential units, farm labor housing, for example. And we added expanded rehabilitation policies for aggregate operations, what those requirements would be, and did identify that there may be options other than agriculture and or natural environment for certain pits when they're finished. And then a community design section was added as well for both new developments and redevelopment. In terms of the mapping changes, there's additional maps for the hamlets. They each have their own maps, so it's easier to see what's happening there. The appendix maps were updated to reflect our latest information. Schedule B, which is the map for the entire municipality, shows the proposed settlement area boundary changes, natural environment changes, and then the mineral aggregate designations. They were revised and updated to reflect our unconstrained deposits, but also the exhausted deposits and any properties where the licenses had been surrendered. I mentioned settlement area boundary changes. There were 2 expansions. The first is Clinton on the east side of Clinton, the addition of 123 acres next to Wildlife Line. Let's get my pointer. So it's on the east side here. That's this area in the hatched portion. Those familiar with Clinton, the purple areas is community facilities. So this would be St. Anne's Catholic High School, St. Joseph's the Catholic Elementary School, Christian School, and then the Clinton Public School. So there's a large contingent of educational related facilities next to the lands that are proposed to come into Clinton. These lands are primarily agricultural at this point, but there is a piece towards the kind of a western north piece here that's natural environment. That's used by the Catholic high school and elementary school and would continue to be used by them even with it coming inside Clinton. I mentioned the schools, so this area has very good proximity to schools and children being able to walk to school when it gets developed, because it is assumed that the majority of the parcel would be for residential development, and there have been inquiries from interested individuals in developing those lands. As part of those inquiries, there was interest in the portion just north of Highway 8 for highway commercial uses as well. And there's already a highway commercial use in the corner, which is the EPS facility. We did look at it in terms of agricultural impact. There's an existing agricultural operation to the east. It's already constrained by EPS and some residences that are currently here. So there's no additional impact on that farm. And in fact, if they were to build additional livestock barns, double the size of the operation, there's room to do so to the rear of the existing barn. The other settlement area expansion is east of Goderich. It's much smaller. It's at the intersection of Huron Road, Highway 8, and Orchard Line. It's this area here. It's approximately 12, 13 acres, the majority of which is already developed for residential use. There's 4 existing residential properties that are zoned R1. The additional area here between these existing 4 houses and this area is already zoned residential 1, low density residential. So it would just bring these parcels into the east of Goderich settlement area. As part of that expansion, this portion, which is the pink, is the highway commercial designation. Its line is roughly here. There's a request to take some of the residential designated land and make it highway commercial to have a parcel that's deep enough to allow for those larger highway commercial type uses. They generally need more space than what you would get in a downtown area. So that's also included as part of the official plan review. Other mapping changes, the former Blue Water Youth Center property. It's currently a settlement area with a community facility designation. It would remain a settlement area, but the designation would change to hamlet. That would open up the opportunity for uses other than a community facility, such as commercial and industrial uses as well, as it could still be community facility too. So it just provides more flexibility. Holmesville is an example of an area where we reduced the size of Holmesville by just over 100 acres. And that's primarily lands that were not suitable for development anyway, areas that were part of a provincially significant wetland or other natural area, or were constrained in that they were unable to get good access to the area because of those natural features. The other area is north of Bayfield. That settlement area was adjusted to remove the lands west of Highway 21. They were currently designated hamlet. They would now be designated lakeshore residential. The majority of those lands are already developed and used residentially. Any of the lots that aren't developed will likely be residential. So the thought was there's no need to have it as an urban designation when we actually know it either is or is highly likely to be a residential use. Give it the same designation as we have elsewhere along the lakeshore, which is lakeshore residential. So we removed those lands west of Highway 21 from the north of Bayfield settlement area and are now part of the lakeshore residential settlement area. We also removed the lands north of Bayfield Road. That's a single property that contains both a golf course and a trailer park. It's already designated recreational and fully developed. So there was no need to leave it within the settlement area. It has the recreational designation. It doesn't need to change. So we moved that settlement area boundary just back to Bayfield Road. The original proposal would have been significant areas within Bayfield, north of Bayfield, being removed as a result of consultation with the property owners and the public. That did not proceed. So those areas would stay as part of the North Bayfield settlement area. We do have one unresolved objection, and this is from Mr. Brian Barnum. He owns 2 properties on Lane of Pines side road, west of Highway 21. They're outlined in yellow on the screen. He has a third property on Norma Street. He had some concerns with that, but I think we've resolved those. It's the Lane of Pines one. Mr. Barnum's opposed to the change from lakeshore residential to urban, or from urban. He would like it to stay as urban within the north of Bayfield settlement area. In particular, he wants it to remain with its existing R1 residential low density zoning. He was also concerned that if it became lakeshore residential, he wouldn't be able to have an additional residential unit on the property. In response, we are proposing a policy, and Central Huron Council adopted the policy that would permit an additional residential unit in the lakeshore residential area where the property is large enough. And based on the information Mr. Barnum has provided, both of his properties would meet that policy. So we've been able to address his additional residential unit concerns. His concerns about keeping the property zoned R1 residential low density, that's a zoning issue. I went and looked at the policies for his current policies that led to the R1 zoning, compared them to the policies in the lakeshore residential area. Is there any policies in the lakeshore residential area designation that would prohibit the zoning he has now? And there are not. So there's no reason why he couldn't keep that zoning. I don't know what Central Huron Council would decide in the future. That's a separate decision council makes. It has its own circulation requirements. It has public meeting requirements and appeal rights. They would deal with that then. But there are options. They could decide not to change his zoning. They could decide to change the zoning to a lakeshore residential zone with special provisions that keep similar provisions to what's in the R1 zone, or they may change the LR1 zone provisions to more closely match the R1 zone. In any event, it's a separate process dealt with through the zoning amendment piece, and that's not what's actually occurring as part of this official plan review, and nothing in the official plan review requires the zoning of these properties to change in any substantive way with respect to their provisions. And just as an aside, there is an additional change that Central Huron Council wants to make, but under the recent changes to the Planning Act, that change is to change the complete application requirements. The province has now inserted themselves, and Central Huron Council can't adopt those changes until they're approved by the minister. So it's been provided to the minister. They will respond in their time, and we don't know exactly how long that's going to take. So what happened is Central Huron Council adopted the rest of the official plan amendment, and that's what's before you now. And then once they hear from the minister that those changes have been approved or make any modifications they're looking for, they will adopt those changes, and then that will come before council as a separate amendment for you to approve as well. So just to let you know, I'll be back with the official plan review, and it'll be for the complete application changes. With that, it is recommended that you receive this report and you approve Central Huron's official plan amendment number 34, and that decision be circulated.
Thank you, Craig. Good to know you're coming back. So, any questions for Craig? Seeing not that there is a recommended motion to receive the report and approve. Past Warden Ginn.
Yeah, if I could just make a couple of comments. First of all, I want to thank Craig for all the hours he put in getting through this. We thought it was a good solution to some of the problems we're facing. A couple of items I would just like to make council aware of. First off, the lakeshore, is changing, and anybody with lakeshore frontage knows that it's going from cottages to permanent residences, and it's a little clunky getting from one to the other. And then when you throw on the fact that some people want to develop properties and that type of thing, so some difficult decisions to make. I'm not sure if it's county policy or not, but we did notify every property owner that was facing a significant change. I highly recommend that. It's a cost to the municipality, but I think it's money well spent letting people know that there's a change to their properties without them finding out after the fact. And the third thing I just wanted to mention, most of our complaints and objections were actually based on plantations. People have planted trees to do the right thing, sometimes in urban areas, and weren't happy to change it to natural environment because they still had plans to potentially develop those sites into residential areas. So just to make people aware of it, that's a bit of an issue. That's what we heard from our residents. And with that, that's my comments for now.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? All right, then is there anyone willing to put forward the recommended motion? So past Warden McClellan, Councillor Anderson, saw your hand there for seconding that. Those in favor? That is carried. And Greg, I do believe we'd need a motion to show the effects of agency and comments.
Yes, that's correct. The two are 3B. We did receive agency comments and support. And 5A, those comments from the public informed the draft amendment. There was an unresolved concern regarding the change from urban to lakeshore residential. It was thoroughly considered, but did not affect the decision of council to approve the amendment. So 3B and 5A.
All right. Do I have someone to put that forward? Councillor Bazinet, seconded by past Warden Ginn. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for that. So we do have some correspondence regarding some ownership issues of the Hay Tract, and Craig and Dave Pullen are here to answer questions if there is any questions on that. And if there is no questions, there is a recommended motion that would be appropriate. So past Warden McNeil would make that motion and Councillor Finch would second that. Those in favor? That is carried. The renewal agreement for services, and Sandra is available for questions if there's any questions on this report. And if there's no questions, then I'd be looking for motion to receive the report and give direction to staff. And that is Councillor Heffer, seconded by Councillor Becker. Those in favor? That is carried. Cultural services, Beth is available for questions if there's any on her action plans. Councillor Klopp, please.
Yeah, this is probably a clarification, I guess. Under the, its motion is received for information. Under the financial impact, it refers to this will be included in the annual budget. My clarification is passing this for information. Does it mean that it's already been passed and will be in the budget, or just for information?
Until the budget's passed, the budget is not passed. So it would be still open for discussion at any time until the budget is passed.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, then I'd be looking for motion to accept this report as presented for information. Councillor Finch, Councillor Klopp seconding that. Those in favor? That is carried. Our strategic priority chart was in our package, and Megan is available for questions if you have any questions there. Seeing none, then I'd like a motion to receive that report as well. So that's Councillor Finch, Councillor McLeod seconding that. Those in favor? That is carried. And we are at a place where we're going to look at Huron County budget presentations. And Michael is going to take charge and rule the meeting at this point. So everybody brace yourselves. And Michael, when you're ready, go ahead. And Michael, when you get to it, if for those following in hard copy, if you just make us aware what page you're on, that would be appreciated.
Through yourself, Warden. Yes, I will do that as we navigate through the budget. And thank you for just giving me the opportunity to present the 2026 draft budget for council's consideration. And before I get into it, I really just want to thank staff, whether it's from my finance team or from all the other departments, directors, managers, and departmental staff that have put a significant amount of effort into this document. It takes a lot of work, and it's about 3 months of work to go into this. So I do appreciate all of their efforts in preparing this document for council's consideration. This is budget number 13 for me, so it's been a few budgets since I've kind of started as treasurer for the county, and this is probably the toughest one to date in terms of delivering this budget before county council. Just given the reality of where we're at with some budget considerations in 2026. So I'm basically going to go through the executive summary with council today. We're going to keep it high level. There is a full budget package that is available. We're not going to be going through that document, but it is there for council's review. It's got all the operating costs by program areas, by departments, full detailed capital, and all the full narratives. So if you're interested in reviewing that is available, but that's not what we're reviewing today. We are just going to be going through the executive summary today. As with prior years, just in terms of process, we're going to have a parking lot. So as you have questions that we can't effectively answer today or quickly answer today, we're going to be adding those to the parking lot, and we'll bring back that additional information on our special budget day on February 11th. Plus, that's where we'll really get into the detailed discussion and debate about some of our items. Today and next meeting is more about just providing council with the information, and we will then have that detailed discussion on the 11th, where we actually have some time to do so. And in the interest of time today, we'll probably be going through this fairly quickly, but hopefully giving you everything that, all the information that you do need. And again, like throughout the presentations, I'll just pause periodically just to see if there are any questions. And that way we can make sure that you don't forget, and we can write that down for the special budget day. So we're going to start on page 4. This is the commentary, and I'm going to walk through this in a fair amount of detail because it does have a lot of the information that would be contained in a number of the other subschedules. So we'll spend more time on this section and less time through some of the other schedules because it will just be a repetition of some of the information. So the draft budget before you, it's being presented at 9.89%. That's essentially a budget that would not have any key service area cuts or staffing cuts or anything of that magnitude. The only thing that we have adjusted somewhat to get down to that 9.89% would be a little bit some delay in terms of our asset management funding. But aside from that, it's a pretty much status quo budget at 9.89%. That's the reality of where we're at with the services that we offer to date. So that 9.89% represents about a $5.5 million increase over 2025. And actually, I should note, there's a few edits I had to make on this document, a couple of the dates as I was trying to scramble to get it done before Christmas there. I missed updating a few things. So if there's a date that might not make sense, I might have 24 in there when it should be 25. Just note that that will be adjusted for the next version of this document. Sometimes when you look at something so long, your mind kind of tricks you and you think you're reading it properly, but it's actually incorrect. So anyway, so there are a few edits that I do have to make on that. So okay, so like I said, the budget's 989. There are options to bring it down to 4 to 6%. So if we were to go as low as 4%, we'd be looking at a levy increase of $2.2 million. For last year, we had some substantial growth, assessment growth throughout the county, which is very beneficial for us here in terms of managing our overall budget. So we had $175 million in new growth, primarily within residential and commercial across the county. So we have $16.5 billion in total assessment that we are able to levy taxes upon. So if we were to maintain the same tax rates as last year, as 25, that would actually support a 1.69% increase in our overall budget. And that's equivalent to about $950,000 in new taxation based on new assessment growth. So that is quite beneficial for existing taxpayers, where we can shift some of that existing tax burden off to new growth. So I've just set a hypothetical example, 4.95%. That's where I was kind of able to get into in one of my charts, where my option chart, it's kind of that midpoint. Again, just purely hypothetical. But if we were to assume a increase of 4.95% on the levy, that equates to a 3.17% increase in the tax rate. So that's where that growth assists us with a lower tax rate than we would see with just straight levy increase. The amount of taxes we're raising would be the same, but it would just be spread amongst new assessment growth. So if we were to assume that 4.95%, I'm just giving you some highlights in terms of impacts that we would see across the board for some of our taxpayers, just for your awareness. So that median residential property would see an increase of $38.81. The overall average for residential would be $45. Average per 100,000, $17.17. And on the farmland side, again, which is our largest assessment class, that median property would see $44.95 increase. The average increase 43, with an average per 100,000 of $4.29. So obviously, if we approve a lower levy increase or a higher levy increase, those rates would kind of change accordingly. But it gives you an idea in terms of what those impacts would be for our property taxpayers. So our CVA for 26, essentially based on 2016 values. There's no assessment update in sight at this point. So everything does remain the same. So we're not seeing those massive property class shifts that we have seen in the past with farmland. But what we are seeing this year, like we had different growth patterns across our local municipal partners here in Huron. So we are seeing varying degrees of shifts of county taxes throughout our municipal partners, and that's just based on the growth patterns that have been realized in 2025. No tax policy changes or being proposed for 26. So getting into some of the budget considerations, non-union salaries, they're being budgeted So we're on page 5. Non-union salary increases are 2.5% for 26. That's about $687,000 across the board throughout our various departments for an increase, and that's equivalent of about 1.25% on the county levy. With our homes, this is not an increase this year, but I just do want to touch on it because it is impactful. So we've increased since 2021. We've increased the number of hours at the homes based on new direct care legislation up to 84,000 hours. That's about 43 full-time equivalent staff. And if we actually break that down to full-time, part-time, casual lines, we're probably looking at 60 to 80 staff that we're having to manage in addition to our previous complement. Our funding covers that increase for the direct costs. So we're not seeing any additional costs there, but where we are seeing some pressures are on the corporate side of things and on the infrastructure side of things. We just don't necessarily have the structural capacity to manage that increase of staff. Those costs are borne by the taxpayer. They're not covered by the provincial funding. So we are actually seeing some negative impacts by these changes in terms of the legislation. So you'll see later in one of the options, let's not do the parking lot at Huron-Lee. We need it. The staff capacity requires it, but at the end of the day, it is a county cost for us as part of this legislation. Not only that, the increase in staff has a direct impact on our corporate supports, whether it's through HR with recruitment, payroll, our IT licenses, and whatnot. So there is a cost, but these are indirect costs. Previous to this, too, in prior years, with this increase, we saw some pressures with our agency staffing, and that was just based on the rates. The homes, they renegotiated those rates last year, and we're now in a position where the agency rates are being covered by the funding, so we don't see that as additional pressure as we had in prior years. So I just want to thank the home staff for their work on that because it's the savings on that are substantial. We've included, there's one grant in the budget, that's $66,000. That's an ongoing grant to the Huron County Food Bank Distribution Center. We've included court security funding to the town of Goderich.
Michael, I'm just going to interrupt. Past Warden McClellan has a question here.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I don't want to be rude, and I know we have a process that we've gone through. This budget is different for county council than it's been in a long time. 2 days after we had this book, I'd read every word. I'd gone through the whole thing. I don't really need a recap on that. And I think there's going to be some long discussions that we have on suggestions and options. And I'm certainly a lot more interested in getting into the closed session that may have some serious consequences rather than just recapping the homework that we already had. My personal opinion.
Councillor Klopp.
And I appreciate how it was said. I think you're echoing probably all of us. We respect the hard work, but yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody went home. I can assure you, I really did homework. I thought I've done this before, but I think we've all read it, and we need to respectfully maybe close this off now and finish the rest of the meeting and go to in camera and see where we're at. Thank you, Councillor McClellan, for breaking that. I appreciate it.
Michael, some comment.
Yeah, I have no issue with pivoting to that. If there's something that we want to, do you want maybe a little explanation in terms of some of those budget adjustments that we proposed as staff, or is that something post? Happy to go through anything that council would like to see in advance of going to closed, but also, we do have the staff departmental presentations to go through, so maybe we could pivot to that. I don't know if Megan, perhaps, do you have some comments in terms of process?
I'll start with Past Warden Ginn. You had your hand up.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that suggestion, but I had a question that was like 2 paragraphs down. So, and it's, asset management funding program of 700,000 to support financing strategy. So is that hiring a consultant for strategy? Like, it seems like a lot of money. So if you could just explain that one for me, please.
Go ahead, Michael, please.
Yeah, through yourself, Warden. Yeah, that is just our financing strategy that we had proposed through the asset management plan. So if you recall, when we brought the asset management plan to County Council, just to address the infrastructure deficit, staff had made recommendations that we have to be in that 2 to 2.5% range to meet our long-term targets, to be sustainable with our infrastructure. So that's the financing strategy that's being referred to. So it has nothing to do with hiring anybody. It's just staff have recommended that in order to meet our infrastructure deficits, we have to be at that 2 to 2.5% range. We're falling in at the 1.27%. We're short. We have been short for the past 3 years. So that's financing strategy, has nothing to do with a consultant. That is our asset management plan and the strategy that has been brought forward to County Council.
Follow up?
Explanation, like that. Can you explain the cost of that? Is that just staff time then?
Through yourself. No, this would just be increasing the county levy as part of the assets that we have listed. So there is a secondary schedule that I do have. It's page 20 or 18 of the report. So there's a schedule there which shows the dollars that are being additional dollars that we're raising over 25 for our capital program. So for public works, of that 702,000, there's 375,000 in additional levy that we are raising to enhance the amount of levy that we're raising for our capital program. So in 25, we raised $9.9 million of our own money, of levy dollars, to support our capital program. For 2026, we're recommending as staff, we're raising that by 700,000. So we're actually raising 10.6 million of county levy to support our asset management program.
So that's to get us to that 2.5%.
That's right.
I apologize. I didn't.
Yeah. So this is strictly just county levy dollars to support our capital program. So it's our capital expenses. That's what it is.
So, Michael, I think maybe if council's suggesting that they're familiar enough with what we've read that they would like to skip ahead, then I'm going to move on with the assumption that everybody has read this and read it well. So, Michael, I think we could go right to the presentations that you had laid out.
Okay, so I will just skip to the corporate departments and just go through those quickly, just so you're aware, and I'll be a quick overview. So I'm going to skip to page 84. So the council budget, really status quo budget, non-union increase applied to your per diems. Haven't had a chance to do that review for your conference expenses, but I have upped the conference allotment by 5,000 to accommodate some potential changes there. Skipping to page 86, accessibility committee, really no changes there. There's 30,000 that we've committed to an access sled program, and that is covered by some dollars that we've set aside from surplus in the past. Corporate budget, really one of our key pressure areas. Interest, reserve usage are the big factors there. And you can see here what is being included in terms of some of the costs. But again, this we're definitely having some short-term pain with interest and reserve usage, just kind of weaning ourselves off that. Those dollars made some easy decisions in the past, but now it's come to turn around and bite us a little bit in terms of some of the pressures today. Under administration, I just want to highlight there is one staff that is being reallocated to HR from this administration budget. So you'll see some savings on this budget and you'll see an increase within the HR budget, but that is just strictly a reallocation of a position from one department to another. But again, no other changes. Within finance, again, status quo, and just labor pressures are non-union and COLA and the P50 just being some of the drivers. Our IT, business technology, just operational costs there, but no key changes or we're not pivoting in any way for 26. Just we're operationalizing a lot of our projects that we have implemented in previous years. So, but again, just seeing some increased costs in terms of some of our licenses and maintenance support agreements. Provincial offenses, just volumes up a little bit, increasing our net revenue by 27,000. No other changes. Okay, so if we skip to page 98, and I apologize for going through that pretty quick, but page 98 is our HR budget. So I will defer to Jane Anderson, who will deliver some comments for the HR budget.
Go ahead, Jane.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. So the Human Resources budget for 2026 as an overview, the HR team supports over 650 full-time, part-time, casual, and seasonal staff across the 13 departments. The services include culture and leadership, management and labor relations, workforce development, recruitment and selection, benefits, wellness, and retirement services, and the HRIS system. For 2026, our highlights are a budget increase of $80,459 or 7.77% over the 2025 one. The wage increases are due to the COLA and step increases and an overlap in a maternity leave coverage. We're looking at a non-union market review and a pay equity testing also. And our other core services are accessibility, equity, diversity, and inclusion. WSIB, health and safety and return to work. We have all the policies for HR and employee recognition and rewards. And as Michael had already spoken to, we have an increase of 1 FTE for the staffing. It's a position that's been reallocated from the attrition program from within the administration department. So no overall increase to the county's budget, but it does show up under HR. And that's it.
Thank you, Jane, and we'll pass it over to, if there's no questions for Jane, we will pass it over to Sandra, which is page 111 of the executive summary.
Thank you. The draft Planning and Development Department budget includes 3 sub-budgets, which include planning, water protection, forestry, and stewardship to accommodate the functions and priorities for 2026. Just a few of the budget highlights. There's a very small percentage increase, less than 1% for the Planning and Development Department this year, which is actually 0.53% and equates to $13,600 increase. The forestry legal budget has been reduced as we don't have any large forestry cases on the books right now. Our revenue is expected to remain sort of consistent this year with planning application fees and forestry notices of intents. Proposing to continue with the Huron Clean Water Project at $500,000, and similar to the past couple of years, $400,000 of that in operating and $100,000 coming from the water reserve, which appears to be sustainable over a number of years. Staffing levels remain the same, so no changes proposed for 2026, with the exception of a possibility of reducing a 0.5 FT full-time equivalent based on a current trial that we're doing with the Economic Development Department of sharing an administrative assistant position, and that will show up through the attrition process in 2026. The ENDA for parental leaves has helped to offset the cost of any budget increases for wage adjustments and cost of living increases. So fairly stable there. Just a very small, the capital budget has increased from $3,000 to $5,000. However, that additional $2,000 is covered off by a grant for the early detection of giant hogweed project for the purchase of a drone that we were successful in getting funding for. So no additional cost to the county levy there. And I think that's a quick summary of planning and development. Thank you.
Pass to Warden McNeil, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. I'm just wondering if the continuation of the Huron Clean Water Project at $500,000 would warrant to be put in the parking lot just for further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, and Michael, I'm going to assume you're scribing the parking lot issues as we go. So, all right. Councillor Klopp, please.
Thank you. This is more for clarification or noting, I guess, for future discussion. As you know, planning still is costing all the taxpayers more than what even the Act says. It should be running cost neutral. So I just want to, as I look at 2024 actuals, we were net levy about 1.771. We put in the last budget a 1.8 to more correct that, but it still looks like 2025 was 1.873. The 2026 budget, we are putting an increase here of 1.85. So I just want to note that as councillors as we go forward in discussions on how we try to get things down that it doesn't cost all the taxpayers money. Thank you.
Okay, point noted. Anything else at this time? All right, next, Michael.
Thank you, Warden. So we will turn it over to our county librarian and director of cultural services. So we'll refer to page 107 for the library services budget, please. So thank you, Beth.
Thank you. So just for everyone's awareness, the draft budget was presented to the library board at their December 10th, 2025 meeting and will be brought back to the library board and presented for their approval at the January 14th, 2026 meeting. Overall, the library budget is looking at an increase of just over $162,000 or 4.24%. And I'll review just a couple of the key projects that are included within that. There is a small increase in our operational digital materials that is offset through funds in the book reserve. Capital projects for 2026 include the beginning of the Hensel branch refresh, a new book drop for the Kirkton branch, a digital promotion pilot, and creation of a shelving reserve to support asset management planning. There will be some signage updates, interior wayfinding signage in a couple of branches, as well as exterior signage to increase community visibility. To enhance communication of library offerings and to increase the community knowledge of library offerings and the usage of library services. The library does have included in the budget a plan to add a new library marketing automation software platform that would be purchased through a consortium purchase that would better target and automate key library messaging. And EDI work in 2026 includes programming to recognize pride, truth and reconciliation, welcoming week as well as ongoing staff training. And that concludes my remarks for the library portion of the budget.
Seeing anything less? No.
Okay, so moving on to cultural services, which includes museum, jail, archives, and cultural office. This budget has an increase of just over $65,000 or 3.88%. And key 2026 projects include marking the 75th anniversary of the museum, including an event this summer, as well as a community collections exhibit. Other exhibits for 2026 include Stories from Storage, community curators, and a traveling exhibit. Reconciliation work in 2026 includes ongoing planning to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the Huron Tract through a treaty tour that will happen in early 2027. Redevelopment of the Latimer Gallery to include Indigenous history, events to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day and Trees Recognition Week, as well as completion of the museum's lobby mural. Another core plan for 2026 is to continue high quality programming. The addition of the education and programming coordinator position has led to notable increases in program participation as well as increased revenue generation, and that's demonstrated in the narrative that's included in the full package. PA day camps and an additional week of summer day camp have been added, as well as other off-season opportunities for children and youth. And these allow the museum to reach more children and youth and also to generate additional revenue. Under the previous staffing model, there wasn't the capacity or expertise to pursue these opportunities, and there also wasn't the time to enhance or add to the current offerings. Permanent staffing will allow the museum to deliver on strategic initiatives beyond seasonal peaks And plans for 2026 in this area include redevelopment of the mezzanine space for family and youth programming, classroom outreach kits for schools, Indigenous relationship building and consultation, and the community curators exhibit featuring I Am Huron participants. Capital costs in 2026 are minimal, focusing on the interactive space of the mezzanine, as well as upgrading technology for interactive exhibits. With respect to cultural office programming, that includes the Multicultural Festival, Main Street Arts Festival, Community Arts programming, the annual Cultural Summit, as well as Truth and Reconciliation and LGBTQ2S+ programming. Within the budget, there are 2 new proposed temporary student staffing positions. Both would only move forward if grant funding is successful to offset some of those costs. The first position is one for a museum intern that would support steps to maximize current storage space. And that would ensure that we've really taken a close and meaningful look at all possible measures to utilize that space as efficiently as possible. The second position is for a student to support the cultural office summer events, as well as to perform some cultural mapping, asset mapping. And this would provide a student with valuable experience while also assisting us to move forward with key initiatives without depleting staff capacity within the department. And that concludes my remarks for cultural services. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing anybody getting my attention here. So thank you, Beth. So I think we would look for a motion to receive these budget presentations for information. Councillor Heffer, past Warden Ginn would second that. Those in favor, that is carried. We're a bit of a race course here, but we are getting through to where we need to go. Looking at correspondence, is there anything under correspondence that anybody wants to address? Past Warden McNeil, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. And I would like to address 12.25, the Clean Energy Frontier Program, the year in review. Thank you. I'm sorry, I think it is 12.25. Clean Energy Front. Yes. Yes, thank you.
To draw attention to? Past Warden McNeil, please.
Yes, and the last one for me would be 12.16, and that is from ACW regarding the support for maintaining elected school board trustees, and I would put that forward as a motion.
And a seconder for that one, Councillor Harding. Those in favor, that is carried as well. Anything else under correspondence? So I'd be looking now for a motion to receive correspondence that was not specifically dealt with. The Councillor Anderson, Councillor Becker seconding that. Those in favor, that is carried. We have 2 bylaws for first, second, and third and final reading. Is there someone willing to put forward those bylaws? That's past Warden Ginn, seconded by Councillor Bazinet. Those in favor, that is carried. And we do have a close to the public session, so I would ask that we would have a motion to go into that. So that's Councillor Klopp, Councillor Finch seconding that. Those in favor, that is carried. So at this time now, we will enter into a close to the public session.
Sorry, can we start again? Microphone. I know.
Anderson and Dietrich have put forward a motion to re-enter open session of council. Those in favor of that motion. And that is carried. And CAO Work will do a rise and report from our closed session.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Warden, the purpose of going into closed session today was for council to receive information in closed session regarding personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal employees, relating to the draft 2026 budget.
Now I would be looking for a motion to direct staff to proceed as per direction given during our closed session. So that is Councillor Klopp, seconded by Past Warden McClellan. Those in favor of that motion, that is carried. Under our upcoming meetings, I just want to make you aware that February the 11th from 1 to 3, there's going to be an open house for the Gibbon Street apartment building, and further details will be sent to you closer to that time. Who would like to confirm our actions for this morning? Councillor Becker, Councillor Harding, those in favor, that is carried. And if perchance, could somebody adjourn our meeting today? Councillor Dietrich, Councillor Heffer, those in favor. We are adjourned. Thank you for your attention to today's details.